Welcome back to Inside Sources. Today I have another very formidable Nigerian politician. He was a member of the House of Representatives between 1999 and 2007. You know, you remember that 1999 was when we started this Fourth Republic that is now 25 years. And is the current Deputy National Organizing Secretary of the ruling APC. I'd like to welcome Nze Chidi Duru to Inside Sources.
Thank you, Mr. Lanlu Akonde, for inviting me, and I look forward to the interaction with you and your audience.
Thank you. Thank you. And, you know, just about now, we are still in that mode of having, you know, civilian democracy or civilian rule uninterrupted for 25 years. You know, a couple of days back, the president gave a speech on June 12th. That was a big event. So I wanted to ask you, as you know, to kick off this conversation, that if you look at, you know, what had happened between 1999 up to now, and interestingly, you were a member of the House of Representatives in 1999. Between now and 1999, 25 years ago, do you think that we have been able to deliver the best, you know, for ourselves? Do you think the political elite, of which you are an important member, have been able to deliver the democracy dividend optimally to the Nigerian people?
I would like to say that the fact that we've had an uninterrupted 25 years of the democratic experiment in Nigeria is on its own a win for the country. In the sense that embedded in democracy, of course, as you know, is the fact of the conception of the thought around it that it is for the people. The government is by the people, and what the government will always do will be for and on behalf of the benefit of the people. And that's where the notion of the dividend of democracy comes into being. Right. And the fact that we can sit here and talk about it essentially also shows that progress has been made in the last 25 years. I
do agree also that the fact that we've had uninterrupted civilian rule for 25 years, as a matter of fact, it's even a first in our political history. It's not a mean achievement at all. But I wanted to ask you, you know, if in my view, if you look at where we are, generally as a country, 64 years, you know, after our political independence, I don't think we are in the right place. I believe, at the very minimum, that we ought to have surpassed the stage and the situation that we have. There is palpable hardship in the land, and I don't think necessarily this is a problem of a current administration, even though they have to take responsibility for what is happening now. The question to you, Nze Duru, is, do you think the Nigerian political elite has taken sufficient responsibility for some of the failures and the wasted opportunities that this country has suffered in the last 64 years?
I will always say that it is not for the political elite to take responsibility. I believe that it is for the citizens to hold the political elite accountable, because in the first instance, they put us there and they elected us. And there could be also a question, again, there's apathy in the land. I mean, I've had people say that, look, we shouldn't go in the sense of talking about free and fair election in the country. If that is the case, why is it that when we started democracy in 1999, there was close to about 50-something% of the registered voters in Nigeria at that time came out to vote. And now, the last election, we had less than 20-something% of those that registered that came out to vote. That says something, that there is an apathy, that people do not believe that the electoral process is free, it's fair, and is reflective of the representation and the wishes of the citizens. So that could also be an argument. And the point I need to also make, because government, a democratic government, is a government of the people, for the people, of by the people. It inherent in it is the assumption that the mandate of the political elite will always be derivable from the votes of the citizens. So what would then happen for us to get to that point, and in my advocacy, that it is not for the political elite to judge themselves or rate themselves, it is for the citizens to be able to do that. it is important to go back to what happened in 2000, 2001. And Nigerians would not remember this. And it is actually at the time that the government in place at that time undermined the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria in a more substantive manner, and for which Nigerians have not recovered from it. And I'm happy and I'm glad to hear and read in the papers that the current Attorney General of the Federal Republic of Nigeria have instituted a case against the 36 states of Nigeria and the FCT to ask for what we consider to be autonomy at the local government level.
Right.
It was then that the then president, Olusegun Obasanjo, undermined the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria in a very substantive manner by amending, in his own way, if we would like to use that word, invidiously invading the Constitution of Nigeria by making it impossible for elections to be held at the local government level. The tenures of the local government, chairman of local government and councillors were up to 2000 and 2002. And then for reasons that we understood that was very political, engaged the political actors and presented to them that it was practically impossible to hold elections at that level because the INEC register was not updated. Members of our political party at that time, we were all in PDP. There was no APC at that time. Opposed it. The party in APP opposed it. But then he took a recourse to the regional politics and informed his constituency, which is the Southwest, that look, because he's not in Abuja, he's not welcome with, it's not because he doesn't have a state in the Southwest that was for PDP, and on account of that is beginning to lose influence. It's being touted as not having the required gravity to be able to do a few things and all that. And then he convened a National Council of State meeting. At that point, he presented the picture that we couldn't hold the election because of the lack of updating of INEC register. Under the National Council of State meeting, a decision was now made to postpone the conduct of elections at the local government level. And that was a fiat company. Whereas the Constitution was very specific with the end of the tenure of the councillors and the local government election in the 774 local governments in Nigeria. An election ought to be held to re-elect or elect new officers to occupy that office. And that was not done. And then we now begin to see what we now call interim executives in the local government and councillors appointed by governors and all that, and the rest is history.
Thank you for that important analysis, because of course, so Nigerians are one of the things that Nigerians have to be the growing hardship of the day is the issue of the increase in the tariff and all of that, ban here and ban B and all of that. But the question I wanted to ask to you, as you bring up this important issue is that, so it's your party that is in government, they control the regulators. They actually, put people there. So what is going to happen? So I see that you put on your hat as a citizen and made very important point. But what's your role? What's the role of the APC in advising the ministers or the president? Is there an interaction? I remember that during the Buhari administration, there was a tripartite committee of the presidency, the National Assembly members, and the party. Now, which was where such issues are discussed. I wanted to ask you, Uze Chidi, so how do you hear this, your very important view as a member of the National Working Committee of the APC, in a way that can change the situation for Nigerians? I
do agree. Is our government, and the Minister of Power is also a member of our party. And I also know as a fact that in the last few weeks, there had been interface between the ministers in reporting to the Nigerians what they have been able to achieve in the last 1 year. And there's also an evaluation that is currently ongoing within the executive branch of government to determine the efficacy and how effective the ministers have been in the discharge of their responsibilities. And this is one area I believe that will come up to the fore to be able to access and measure the competence of each of the ministers, in particular the Minister of Power. But having said that,
right,
you must also understand that a regulator should by all means be insulated from party politics, must be seen to act in an objective manner within the ambit of the law that set it up. And our worry and the worry of the party is in the hope that the regulator in itself had not been captured by interests that are embedded in the power sector. In my view,
and that's
knowing fully well the Power Reform Act that was become a bill of the National Assembly that was assented into law by Mr. President Olusegun Obasanjo then, I'm very clear in my mind that there are certain deliverables that the players in the industry, particularly those who bought into the sector, were meant to have delivered.
Those who bought the discos,
who have bought the Gencos, were meant to have delivered. And without even further interrogation, I can say without equivocation that that had not been delivered. If you know that in the 2000, that these same discos were bailed out by the federal government, when federal government granted them a loan to be able to subsidize most of the engagement that we're involved in. And that became a lot of inquiry by the public and by members of the National Assembly. That is surprising to me that at this time we are talking that the government is owing them a debt of close to 3-something trillion, for which our Minister of Finance is now beginning to think of how do we set up an instrument to be able to offset that bill. That sector deserves and demands an inquisition, a lot of looking into.
So you don't agree, Chidis, I'm sorry for interrupting you. So you don't agree with the assessment of the regulator and the minister?
I do not agree.
That indeed,
I know the law.
The law.
I'm one of those that passed the law. I know the content of the law. And I believe that with deep dive into it, Nigerians will come to see that that sector needs a further review.
Okay, all right. Very, very important observation, and I like your insight into these issues, because a lot of these things, the Nigerian audience require, a bit of more understanding, and I'm glad that you're giving quite useful insight. Let's move to politics, before our time is fully spent. So now, we've had quite a few things, of a few renditions of what actually happened in 2022 APC presidential primary. We remember, of course, that the former chairman, Senator Abdullahi Adamu, announced that there was a consensus candidate, and of course that didn't pan out. There was a presidential primary, where President Tinubu emerged. And then, of course, we've had other narratives of Senator Adamu had all the right to support a presidential candidate from the North. You were a member of the National Working Committee of APC then and now. Tell us what happened. What's your own perspective about what happened in the 2022 presidential primary?
I think it was politics at work. And I believe that the NWC of the party rose to the occasion. There were men within the NWC that felt that as the conscience of the party and as the executive arm of the party that is charged with the responsibility of executing and delivering the mandate of the National Executive Council, which is the highest organ of the party.
Right.
That NWC must be seen to be fair to all manner of people and must be seen to be impartial.
Right.
And one of that instruments of guaranteeing that was the conduct of a party primaries to elect the presidential candidate of the party. And when it then came in our meeting, on the suggestion by the national chairman, the then national chairman, by the way, is entitled to his view that a decision had been made to have a particular candidate, the then former president, as Senate president, as the candidate of the party. There were a few of us myself in particular, that made a representation at the NWC that this could not be the case. We could not have invited people to purchase the party form to stand in for election and spend close about 100 million in that exercise and not give them a level playing field to be able to do that. And immediately the meeting came to an end in my office.
You spoke at that meeting?
Yes, of course. I spoke I led that. In my office, immediately after that, there was a meeting in my office. And by the way, you should also know that the organizing department was responsible for the conduct of the party primaries. And we are very insistent that that process must continue. It was then that we decided that we must go public with our view that it is unconscionable and it could not happen that the arm of government, arm of the party that is responsible for guaranteeing an impartial election should be seen not to do that. And that if we do not do that, then it will mean that there's a blanket assumption that the NWC had taken a position. But again, I must also say that we have at the background the support of the then the Deputy National Chairman, North, who was with us. And of course,
the current Minister of Agriculture.
The current Minister of Agriculture, and then the National Secretary of the party at the background. And then, of course, the National Organizing Secretary. And after we reached a consensus in my office that this must be the stand of the men of conscience in NWC, we decided to go public and address the press. And in consultation with the Progressive Governors Forum, under the leadership of His Excellency Bagudu, we now address the press and express the determined view of the members of the NWC and the conscience of NWC that the NWC have not taken a position and that any candidate that would fly the flag of the party would be the candidate that would emerge from the process of organized primaries, which is only a few days away. And we worked hand in hand with the Governors Forum. And on the basis of that, an NWC was convened in the party secretariat that had in attendance not only members of NWC, but the Governors Forum also came to show solidarity with the view that we have expressed. And then we had to go to the House of the Chairman to brief him of that position. So, and I'm happy that at the end of the day, we went into primaries, and the candidate of the party that won went into election, and the rest is history.
Interesting. You know, and thank you for filling, you know, some of those gaps, because it's important for us to be able to put on record exactly what happened. But I still want to talk about a little bit more as we begin to round up, you know, about APC. So Malam Saliu Lukman has been quite, very outspoken, you know, around some of the issues that he believed are still trending in the APC. Issues of lack of internal democracy, issues of the fact that the party organs are not being allowed to operate according to the constitution of the party. As a matter of fact, you know, he said that this was one of the reasons that led to the termination of the NWC under Comrade Oshiomhole. It was the failure, you know, to abide by issues of internal party democracy, to abide by the constitution. But it says that, you know, the Senator Adamu's leadership continued, and then he left, and that, you know, right now the APC is not following its own constitution in terms of the statutory meetings, especially of the APC. What's your response, Chidi?
Okay, before I go into that, it is important to also put on record the major role that was played by the National Organizing Secretary of the party, who had the responsibility to lead us to address the press in expressing the views of the NWC, the members of the NWC that was opposed to an imposition of a candidate of the party, and of course the National Financial Secretary.
So that's an addition to the last question.
Part of that meeting.
All right.
To the question of Salihu Lukman, one thing you can always say, he speaks his mind. And he is very firm with his views and represents that in a way that only him knows how best to do, which is putting his thoughts in writing.
Right.
And he can write as many points, editorials and letters
and
as possible.
I commend his courage
in a particular day, and then he's not wanting of courage in expressing his views, and that is the beauty of democracy, being able to allow all contending views, alternative views, to flourish, to be put on the table. So I like him for that, and I must say that when he was my colleague in NWC, we put together and we worked together. Of course, different style. Right. His style is different. But,
well, you just mentioned his name as part of the people that were conscious.
So his style is different, and my style is different. And I would like to think that we are now at that point in NWC where most of the views is expressed and held, have been talked about and have been discussed. It's not for want of the desire of the current leadership of the NWC under His Excellency Ganduje to implement that. But again, there are a number of things that have been taken into account. We have to take into account how is it possible to deploy the logistics to hold this meeting. But again, I also understand that the Constitutional Party says it's a matter of shall, it's not a matter of option. And I believe that sooner than later, the views that are being expressed and what needs to be done in accordance with the Constitution of the party would be done and need to be done in the shortest possible time.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Nze Chidi Duru, for your contributions and for coming to Inside Sources. And thank you for your service to the country.
Thank you, Alanglu Akonde. My first year, my pleasure, and I enjoyed it.